All right. So while more people join in, I'll just give a brief introduction about what we are doing here, right? So, thank you so much, Thomas, for joining. First of all, for all of you who are here, thank you so much for joining again. And I'm so excited about this one because it took me almost 33 years to realize that I need a coach and I need a mentor, and I didn't know the difference between the two. And you know, yeah. And once I realized that I need it, and I tried it once, I can never go back. So the reason why we are having this discussion is there were a lot of people who wanted to understand, how this relationship works. How do you know that you need a coach? When do you need a coach? How much money should you spend? Should you even spend money? Can a coach be replaced by YouTube videos because there's so much content out there? What is it that a coach would provide or a mentor would provide that normal free content on YouTube cannot? I think there were so many questions and so much confusion, especially when you're coming to a new country. And Thomas, a lot of people here, are within 5 years into Canada or where they were coming from, right? So when you come to a new country, the biggest challenge that I faced is that I know a lot of people, when I was in India, because I was born and brought up here, but here it was all new to me, right? So everything was new. I didn't know the difference between a realtor and a mortgage agent. Forget about, buying real estate, right? Everything is new, and I just felt that I need acceleration in my journey. And I just need to learn from other people's mistakes. And I just wanted to, and because I had experience of, failing in my previous business, I just felt that, the biggest advantage that I have is if I can pay my way into learning something that I would, otherwise make mistakes on and probably lose more than what I spend on coaching. So that was my reason for, having, people like Thomas as my coach. So just to introduce, Thomas is amazing. He has been a real estate investor for a very long time. He's a Canadian, but he is right now in the US for the last 8 years, if I'm not mistaken, Thomas. And yeah, you have invested in Canada, you have invested in the US, and he's currently my coach. And I am learning how to invest in the US because with my profession, I do understand a little bit of Canada. And I continue to learn that, just because I am a mortgage agent in Canada, but US was just something that I didn't know. And real estate is one place where you can actually lose a lot of money if you make the wrong decision, right? Even though people say that real estate is one place where you can't lose everything. But again, you need to have the right strategy, you need to have the right mindset, and you need to have the right people in place, more importantly, to be able to be successful. So that's where Thomas comes in for me. And he has been so much help. I've been talking to you, I think, since September or October. And just so people who know here, we did partner with Thomas on one of his US deals. So yeah, finally, I am a US real estate investor as well. And I'm very excited for the next 1 year on, what that will bring to us. But Thomas, thank you so much for joining. And I'll just, give the stage to you if there's anything that I missed.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Nav, for having me, and good evening to everybody. As Nav mentioned, I'm from Canada, born and raised in Toronto, and moved out to sunny California about almost 9 years now. And my ticket to the US was by marrying an American, because I get that question asked a lot. How did you do it? What was your avenue? Which visa? This visa, the one on my finger. So, I mean, as a pathway for some of you guys, if you're ever interested to become, to get into the US. But in all fairness, Nav, this is such a great conversation. This is such a great topic. I don't think it's really discussed enough, mentorship, coaching. I think if we're thinking about it, it's almost like it's too late. I mean, ultimately, even for myself, I didn't get a coach probably soon enough. And, probably for some of the considerations and factors that most of us think, you brought up in the beginning of your conversation, the cost, I think, is one thing that comes in people's minds. Do I really have to pay somebody to coach me or guide me? And number two, with the wealth of information we have available to us through the internet, through YouTube, there's just an overwhelming amount of information. So a lot of time, it's not something really new that your coach or mentor is really providing, but it's just more focused and it's more specific to you as the individual, catering to you, your specific needs. Because really what I try to do is understand my clients. I mean, everyone's situation is different. So just because I may coach in real estate, if I have 10 students, 10 mentees, I'm not necessarily coaching each one exactly the same because there are different intervals. Some are brand new, some are more experienced, some have no money, some have money. Some, are going through some challenges that we have to get through before they can get to the next step. Other of them are much more advanced and they're ready to kind of like continue into more, larger opportunities. So really, I mean, this is a great conversation. I think that's why I want to start off the premise, and I'm excited to kind of get into it with you, Nav.
Amazing. Thomas, first one, and it took me a long time to understand this. What's the difference between mentor and a coach? Yeah. It's something that I've been struggling, even though you can ask ChatGPT and whatnot, right? But in your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I don't know if I've been asked that specific question. I mean, I know from a coach's perspective, a coach is someone that you hire for a specific training, very niche to whatever need you need. I mean, there's coaches in sports, coaches in music, coaches like let's talk in real estate, and they come in and they really help you get from point A to point B. So it's very specific. There's potentially a program or a set schedule, a set program to get you to where you need to be. Mentorship, I think, is a little bit more fluid, a little bit more where the individual is really telling you a lot of their experiences. It could start more from like a high level, and they're guiding you from their life experiences, what they've kind of gone through, the challenge they've faced. And from there, then the mentee may ask questions. There's probably more talking from a mentor versus a coach. Coach is going to listen specifically to the individual more, understand their specific needs, and create the game plan for their specific need. Whereas a mentor is more fluid, a little more holistic, and I would say broad, and kind of explain that, listen, I mean, like if we talk about real estate, I've been doing real estate for X number of time. This is what I've gone through. These are my experiences. These are some of the things I've worked through. So you as the mentee, you're listening, you're kind of like taking notes, or you're gleaning off of their wisdom and experience type of thing, versus a coach can be much more like just more tactful and more specific.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that really helped me understand this is that I think in my view, you can outgrow a coach. Mentor is someone who is probably in my life, who is probably, 20 years more experienced than me. Whereas a coach is someone who may or may not be more experienced, but they are more experienced in their field. And you can outgrow by virtue of either changing goals, your life goals and your investing goals, if that's one of those, or, by just virtue of, doing what that coach was meant to do with you, and then your target just changes, right? So you want to do more, or the coach becomes your mentor, right? Even that is something that I've seen do. So now that we have that out of the way, and we have just cleared that, when do you know, Thomas? In your view, when do you know that you need a coach? Like you, for example, there was a time when I failed in my business. And that's when but that was too late, right? Like I failed in my business, and that's when I realized that I need a coach to give me the direction. There was nothing wrong with the business. I think the entrepreneurs, made the mistake. I made the mistake, right? So, and that was a very hard lesson. And then that's when I understood that I need a coach. But in your view, what's the right time?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a great question. I mean, really, from an experience level of most of the entrepreneurs or people getting into entrepreneurship, we want to try and figure things out on our own. That's already kind of like the model of an entrepreneur. You're breaking free from kind of like the safety of a structure, the safety of a job where someone's telling you, do this and you'll get paid this. This is kind of like the confinement of your position. Versus entrepreneurship, there's just the freedom to go out and set your own time, set your own schedule, decide on what you want to do with your life, with your business, and so forth. But because of that, you don't necessarily have someone telling you. It may potentially, lead to problems, type of thing. So
Hmm.
I think looking back, especially in my experience, if I had gotten a coach sooner in the process, they could at least provide some more structure, to just the fluidity and just the openness, just the vast. When as an entrepreneur, you don't have necessarily someone telling you, so it may lead you to kind of like waste time,
Yeah.
waste capital that not necessarily needed to be wasted. Whereas a coach kind of helps you kind of put some parameters in place, keep you accountable, help you to get through certain things, especially if it's a coach who's experienced in that field. I mean, if we could pick any topic. You mentioned being a mortgage broker or a realtor. I'm like, really, there are certain day to day or week to week or month to month kind of activities that you need to do.
Hmm.
But if you're especially starting to a field that you're either new to and you're venturing into, I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So now you're just going to be basing everything by trial and error, and that could spend a lot of time, a lot of money. So the reality is a coach can just dial in your focus on the more priority things and help you to kind of progress in an orderly fashion. So in terms of timeline, you probably want to get a coach as soon as possible. I mean, think about it even at the children level. Like think of like a sport or piano. I mean, if you're gonna say, oh, go learn the piano, and then they're gonna be just banging on the keys. You know what I'm saying? Like if they bang on those keys for long enough, they may get to play a song, after who knows, months or years, right? But are they really playing it properly? Are they just banging keys and it's like maybe just the sound of it sounds okay, but the reality is someone like a coach, teacher will be able to say, no, this is music. These are the keys. This is how you press the note. This is a melody. This is how things work. And it's like, oh, wow, no one told me that. They may have been able to pick it up after years, but think of the amount of time they could have saved if someone in the beginning tell you, do this, then this, then this. Like, oh, great.
Hmm.
So I think the reality is you most likely want to get a coach earlier than later, and some for those specific reasons, to save you time, to save you money, to create some sort of structure, a system for you.
And I think, Thomas, those are really good points. And I like the fact that you said that you don't know what you don't know. I'll give an example, right? So when I became a mortgage agent, this was not too long ago, like one year and few months, right? So it was exactly 1 year from now when I got overwhelmed. Like 3 months into becoming a mortgage agent, I got overwhelmed, by the amount of files, by the amount of work, by the amount of paperwork. And my coach, who was, teaching me mortgages, because he has been, doing that for 25 years, he realized because of my volume, I need a team. I need an underwriter. And that means that I'll be sharing my commission with the underwriter, right? And I was cagey about that at that time. But he told me this, that you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you need to do this, right? So, and trust me, you'll be able to do. And that was the best decision of my life. I went against my instinct. I needed help. I knew that. And I just trusted my coach to just hold my hand and find me an underwriter and take that pressure off me. And honestly, I have a marriage today because of that, right? So forget about, business, right? I could have just, burnt out in the first 6 months if I had not done that. But Thomas, it's very important also in my view, and I love to know your point of view on this. It's also very important to know why you need your coach. Like the why has to be there, right? You can't just have a coach for like generic things, right? Like you need to know where you are going first. So how did you realize when you were looking for coaches, how did you realize, that, okay, this is the direction that I want to go in, and then I need help in this. So what was your process there?
Yeah, I think through experience, you realize, okay, you start taking action in whatever field or industry you're in, and, you start getting some success, you start making some traction. But, we get to a point where it's like, all right, your capabilities have gotten to a certain level, and that may be good, but you may discover, there's more levels, right? And you may want to fast track that growth. If it took you like 4 years to get to a certain level, it may take you another 4 years to get to the next level. the idea of bringing a coach will potentially open up your mindset and and help you to gain the skill set to level up a lot quicker and give you kind of things that you're not even realizing that you're doing. So again, there's a tremendous amount of benefits that a coach can do. Now, of course, it's finding the right coach, right? Mm-hmm. And that may be another consideration of how you go about finding a coach. But I think it's important to realize that there are a significant amount of benefits that a coach can do for you. You got to be clear. You don't want to bring someone and say, help me. What do you need help with? I don't know. So I think it's really important that you're clear with understanding what's the need, and then find a coach to fill that need.
How do you know that, this person is the right person for me? Like, how does anyone who, let's say, want to become a real estate agent and they want, coaching and mentorship and, like you don't know what you don't know, just knowing that, right? So how do you identify?
We're humans and we like to interact. We want to work with people, most likely people that we know, like, and trust. The challenge is, how do you gain that from someone you don't know? Mm-hmm. The beauty is, there's a couple of different ways that come to mind. One, if someone refers you, here's a referral. Just talk to so-and-so, they're a great coach, they help me, they may be able to help you. So you could potentially get a referral by someone, letting your network know, I'm looking for a coach that does this, ABC, do you know anybody? Here's a referral. So that's one way of potentially getting a coach. Someone that you trust and they kind of refer you somebody. In this day and age, I think most of us are on social media, are online, and you do searches and you follow people. I think that's the beauty about following people, is that over a period of time, you get a gist of their personality, you get a gist of who they are, what they do, and you kind of see if they vibe with you. They kind of like speak your language. There's potentially, there's a lot of people out there in the world, right? Millions and billions of people and stuff, but you have to kind of like find someone that you can relate with. Mm-hmm. That's the important part of a coach, is someone that when they speak, you can relate with them. If someone speaks in a way where it goes over your head, or speaks in terms or in ways that just doesn't make you feel comfortable, they're probably not the right coach. So I think outside of a referral, it's really, if you've got the beauty about spending time with someone, that's even better. I think, again, we're relational beings. So if you know someone, you spend time with them, get to know them, then it's like, wow, I really respect and enjoy, you as a person, as an expert. I would like you to be my coach, obviously, because you spend time with that person. But that's not always the case. Like, I'm in a different country, right? So, a lot of times people are finding me online. And then, from there, they kind of see what I do. And then they kind of like follow me it could be over a period of months and months. And then finally they reach out, schedule a call. I do these exploratory discovery calls. I call 15, 20-minute calls. I had 3 of them today. People reach out to me, they book a call with me, and then we have this exploratory call and we see how it goes. Ultimately, I think that's a way, the society has, this way of doing things has kind of like elevated to this level, is becoming more and more the norm. So I think that's one way. It's just kind of like, obviously, researching the subject matter that you're looking for support on. Start following different individuals to see if they kind of like are educating, or they know what they're talking about. You understand when they speak. If it starts resonating, see if they have a program that you can maybe potentially, a lot of people offer like ebooks or just kind of like some information. Number 2 is if they have an opportunity for you to book a call with them, somehow get on their radar. And if that's not the case, and this happens going back more to mentors, I think there's another thing to consider between mentors and coaches. Sometimes mentors don't charge. Coaching is more formal versus a mentor. It may be just someone that just has a tremendous amount of experience and can impose wealth of information, knowledge to you, but not necessarily charge. However, they not offer their mentorship to just anybody, right? Mm-hmm. So how can you get into their world? That's another whole conversation, but I think there's a way to get on people's radar, right? People who are at level to mentor, people may have a certain realm of experience, who may have a wide audience, I mean, you have to get creative potentially on how to get under a radar, right? Not just simply DM me, DM the person saying, I want you to coach me. How do you, that may not necessarily be the most effective way type of thing, right? So are there opportunities for you to add value? Because too often, all of us, we have our phones and people are just randomly DMing us. Oh, I need help, or I need this, I need that. But it's like, really, how many people do we know are real? And how many people do we know are the right fit type of thing? So there are potential other ways, to get in front of those potential mentors. But yeah, I think that's just kind of first thing that come to my mind when you asked me that question.
So the way I met Thomas was I was following Alfonso. So Alfonso, for those of you who don't know, he started Wealth Genius. I still have his thing here, right? So he started Wealth Genius with an intent to make other people understand multifamily investing in Canada. So it started with Canada, right? So I was again, I met him, not met him, but I saw him on one of the YouTube channels, Realestate channel in Canada, and that's when I realized that he's doing so well, and I got hooked on to him. Then I knew someone who was part of Wealth Genius, and we were doing a video together. A lot of you actually know them, Sid and Ishan, who are in Cambridge. So I met them, and I was like, okay, what was your experience? And they're like, we actually learned a lot, being part of Wealth Genius. And I was like, okay, that sounds exciting. And then I saw Alfonso post something on US investing, and they're expanding in the US. And then I saw Thomas there with Alfonso, and they were having a boots on the ground event for US investing in Florida. And that's where I just booked it. It was to be honest, it was $5,000, right? So, and I was like, what? It's real estate. So let me just spend the $5,000. I'm pretty sure I'll get the return, or at worst, I'll know what not to do. So I'll probably end up saving $5,000, if not making $5,000. And that's why I booked it. And then Thomas actually reached out and said, oh, you know what? If you spend, kind of an upsell, Thomas, I'll be honest, but it made sense, right? He said that, why don't you go for a mentorship program or coaching program, and you just get, for this much amount, you actually get. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And that was probably the best decision that I took. And that's how I met Thomas. Right. So it was all real estate. I was building trust with Alfonso posting. I'm sure Alfonso didn't know that there was someone who was going to join Wealth Genius. Amazing guy. But that's how I met Thomas. So it was all social validation for me. And then I was 100% sure that if I don't make money, it'll probably help me save money, because that's how real estate works. Right. So, Thomas, you also mentioned about mentorship, right? So it got me thinking that my current editor, I don't know if he's on the call today or not, but my current, obviously he'll be editing this video, but yeah, my current editor, he reached out to me on LinkedIn. He's 17-year-old guy. He reached out to me on LinkedIn and he said that, I know that, so in one of my videos, I said that I don't like editing. He said that I'll edit your videos for free in exchange for 30 minutes of my time. So he was trying to fit himself into my schedule. I think that's the difference between coaching and mentorship, right? So he wanted me to become his mentor. He's 17 years old. He didn't probably know the difference, or maybe he did, but he was trying to fit himself into my schedule so that I don't have to take 30 minutes out of my current, things. And that made sense, right? Obviously, I paid him from video number one, but again, that's one thing that we need to think of when we are thinking about mentors and coaches.
Regarding what you had mentioned about saving monies, I think that's my experience as well. One piece of advice can literally, and especially in real estate, can save you thousands of dollars. It's one thing, to get a coach in a certain subject matter, like I mentioned, piano lessons. Okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? You don't learn a song or something, or you waste some time. But in real estate, where it's a big ticket item, where you're spending a lot of money, one wrong decision or one good piece of advice can save you a lot of capital. It's like, why, it could be simple as like the type of insurance product that you use, or the type of, strategic renovations or value add you do, it can literally save you thousands of dollars. So I think that's where we need to kind of stop and realize the benefits of what a coach can bring to you.
how much to spend on a coach? Like, is there a mathematical formula to it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I don't know the answer to it because there are so many different types of coaching programs, literally from hundreds to like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
And the range is wide, and it's not like a perfect science because you find two or three people providing similar value, but their price point is completely different. So it's gonna definitely take some research.
yeah,
And I think like for you met those brothers, Ishan and his brother. I mean, that obviously helped. It kind of provides some validation as you shared. Just completely hiring someone that you know nothing about is probably very risky. So you probably again want to do some research. You want to ask some people. I mean, testimonials obviously are good, are important. So yeah, I think most of us do some sort of research. When you come across somebody, you're gonna type in their name, see what comes up. If they have a website, if they've got some videos, you kind of listen in. You want to hear what they sound like, what they're saying. I think these are just ways that we can start, reducing that risk, understanding what this person's all about.
for sure. I think some things that come to mind, are, for instance, when I was joining Well Genius, right? So I was gonna say, okay, it's a big amount of money, but can I make 10x in less mistakes or 10x in more money? And in real estate, $130,000 making over the next 5 years, it's not a stretch, right? You can, right? And I was like, okay, it's a lot of money, but what's the value that can I get 10x out of it? And the answer was yes, and that's why I did it. Alex Hermosi, I don't know, Thomas, if you follow him. So a lot of people don't know, but even he has a coaching program, and he charges anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000, for coaching. And I think it's just like 4 to 6 months. It's not like he's doing it
right.
But he charges a lot of money. But again, he is one guy who has built, like 20 million, worth of business, and he has a portfolio of 100 million. So if he's charging $100,000, let's say, he is one person who can take my business from whatever I am today to $1 million, right? So there's 10x value there. So I think obviously affordability is one thing. You need to, you can't go into debt. Like one may argue you can, but you don't want to go into debt and then take a coaching program. But that's how I have been thinking about it. I don't know if it's the right thing, but yeah.
Yeah, and obviously someone like Alex, like he's validated himself. He has a book. Yeah. He's providing tons of content, tons of value. So it's not like someone just hires them without knowing anything about them, especially if they're going to be spending that kind of capital. So again, and also he's most likely not the coach for a brand new person, a brand new entrepreneur. So I think there's going to potentially be a step up of coaches over a potential career or a lifetime of an individual.
Being a new real estate agent, I should look for a mentor or a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a newbie, as an agent, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. We kind of established that. You most likely want to join, in my opinion, a team, which there'll be a team leader, a de facto coach that will help you put together a system for you to move forward. I think mentorship potentially may happen a little bit later. Of course, you can sit down and talk to some well-established real estate agents who've been in the industry for a long time. They can share their story and maybe you can glean off of that. But I think a coach would be probably most beneficial for a newbie. And maybe more specifically, joining a team where you're really going to have everything kind of set for you and you can just start. And then after a while, if you want to go on your own, that's fine. But it's really learning the fundamentals, really learning how to generate business as a real estate realtor.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, when they join new, and this includes me as well, hyper focus on the splits. You can actually make a very expensive mistake and lose all the split, right? Or you can lose your license in the worst case, right? So I think that's where for a new real estate agent or a new mortgage agent or an aspiring, any of those professions, I would say just don't look at splits, look at education in the beginning, and you look at coaching and like specific, things. And in a couple of years.
Yeah, like, I mean, partnering with someone who's more experienced, and splitting your commission is almost like paying for that coaching.
Yeah.
In essence, it's just taking out of your commission, which actually works better because, they're going to teach you, they're going to get you kind of dialed in how this all works. And they've had to invest in certain systems that you will be able to utilize. And then when you guys transact a deal, they just take a piece of that, but it's like you're paying for everything that they've helped you.
They're invested in you, right? So they are invested in you. So if you make money and if they make you capable enough to make money, they make money. And it just, I feel it's in real estate. I think that's the best kind of coaching that you get. If you don't make money, your coach doesn't make money. It's just, investing in one another's success. So you did touch upon this. Could you please share your real estate journey? So you said that you bought your first property 20 years ago, your second one 5 years after you bought the first one.
Correct.
How quickly did you buy the third one?
For me, my first 5 years was a relatively slow process. Right. Took 5 years to buy my second one. It took about another year to buy my third one. And then I think another year after that, about 2 condos. So in about 5 years, I had about 5 properties. And it's starting 5 years after my first one. So really in 10 years, I had 5 properties. And at that point, I was doing everything on my own. I would look for opportunities. I would self-manage. I would find my own tenants. I would, again, deal with the contractors. I was like a one-man show, really kind of like thinking I'm saving money and stuff, but I was driving an hour to these properties or longer and spending time during the day. So it was a lot. And finally, it took really me moving when I realized I'm now moving into a brand new area, not knowing anybody. And that's when I moved to the States. But I had to figure out how to get some more support, to bring on other people, to grow. I mean, I could only grow at such a rate on my own. Yeah. So that's when I basically started really utilizing other experts and bring on partners. And then things kind of fast tracked from there. So there's a whole other conversation on continue growing on your own as a single investor, or strategic partnerships, joint ventures, that sort of thing. I found the value of partnering with people, and that really kind of 10x my growth. And I was able to quickly double my portfolio within like a year, and then every other year afterwards, it practically doubled afterwards. So now, looking back, I've been investing for about 13, 14 years. I'm not even considering the first property, really an investment, but really heavily focused over the last 13 years or so. And it's mainly been a lot of strategic partnership. And then you can do larger deals, more doors, more units. And then when you have a strategic partnership, you don't have to do everything, so you can kind of segue the business responsibilities. I'll do one aspect of the business, you do another one. My journey's similar to other people, but then there's many different pathways. At the end of the day, it was quite slow for the first five years or so, and after that, it's kind of like sped up fairly quickly. Different markets, different countries, and so forth. So yeah, that's a little bit of a snapshot.
No, that's amazing, Thomas. This is very inspiring, and I know that you have really, really big goals for the next 10 years as well. So yeah, kudos to that. And I have one question, before I get to the next. I think we need to be okay with trying on a coach and failing. I think a lot of times we dwell upon what if the coach is not good for me, or we are just trying to lie to ourselves that, we don't want to spend money. So in reality, we don't want to spend the money. But it's just hurting us, and we just, then I've just come to realize that I just need to pull the trigger. If I just need to, listen to my gut and not listen to my brain saying, oh, don't spend that money, that money, right? I think in your experience, have you ever had an instance where you actually failed and you said, that's okay, and you moved on to the next one?
Yeah, I think we need to understand hiring a coach is really investing in yourself. I think too often we look for outside things, but we don't realize that we need to work on ourselves. So just like going to the gym or eating healthy, you're working on yourself to be able to be productive and to be able to, be successful in many aspects of our life, not just business. So getting a coach really is helping you directly to become a better person, a better entrepreneur, a better business person. So I think it's coming to terms of investing in yourself. What does that look like? Right? I think kind of identify areas in your life that you need to work on. For some people, it's your health. Are you taking care of yourself health-wise? Are you eating relatively well? Are you sleeping, getting enough rest? Are you, reading, educating yourself, consuming, balanced content and so forth? Are you hanging out with the right people? Are they lifting you and encouraging you? Are you nurturing your spiritual side? And then what about your business now? What are you doing in your business? Are you just jumping into something, or are you educating yourself? And then how are you educating yourself? Are you just consuming YouTube content? Okay, it's good, but I think we established that earlier. There's more than just watching YouTube content, right? Because that person is not talking to you specifically. They're just talking to a broad audience, right? It's great, but then what? Now, hiring a coach is just another element of investing in yourself. I'm hiring this person to help me, right? You can go to the gym and just try on different machines and then say, I went to the gym. Or you hire a trainer and he's telling you this exercise, this works, this muscle right here. Yeah. That's the muscle you told me you want to improve on. So don't do this. You got to do this. Oh, okay. So you can spend years doing this, but then this is really targeting that muscle. Why didn't you tell me? Right? So again, really realizing you have to invest in yourself to move further and faster ahead. Once we agree, okay, I'm willing to invest in myself. Now it's just vetting and doing the research and finding who's going to be that person, who's going to be the right coach for me. And then, like you said, Nav, you hire someone. It may not be the end all, it may not be a perfect coach, but now you've taken action. You've basically come to realization and said, I am going to hire a coach. You hire a coach. Okay, maybe this person is the right person for me. Great. You have a relationship for 6 months, for 12 months, maybe longer. Is that it? Can you never hire another coach? No, I mean, we're not married, right? You only married hopefully to one person, right? So, you hire potentially a different coach, and that coach helps you in a different aspect than the first one, right? So I think, again, going forward in your career, in your life, you may have different types of coaches, and it may be all specific to your niche if we're talking real estate. Or you may have a coach for your health, a coach for your business, a coach like a psychologist that may coaching you on kind of mindset, and then coaching, what I'm saying, in different aspects. People go to marriage counseling. It's like a coach, right? Because they want some advice and help in their marriage and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But too often, I think the culture sometimes, it gives us the idea that, oh, if you have to hire a coach, you're a failure. Or if you hire a coach, you're not smart enough to figure it out on your own. That's not the case. I think it's becoming to realizing I don't know everything. I'm going to seek some help, and that's okay.
And honestly, Thomas, and I can't be mild here, and if someone is getting offended, so be it. But I have never heard someone who has a coach say that you should not have a coach. I've always, people who have coaches, people who have psychotherapists, people who have spiritual coaches, they always say that you need to have it, irrespective of whether you have a problem or whether you are dealing with something or not. You should have it. You should have a direction, obviously, before you get a coach, but you should have it. So when people say that, you have a problem and that's why you're going to a coach, those are probably the people who never had coaches. So, again, it comes back to, surrounding yourself with people who are uplifting you. And rather than going to people who are not going in the right, in the same direction that you want to be in, right? If you want to become a superstar real estate agent, take coaching from a superstar real estate agent, right? So I think that's where we need to change a mindset. And again, it's just about training our mind. And
100%. I think today, at least this kind of generation is getting a little bit more than the previous generation. I think older, they were more like, I got to figure out my own, potentially a little bit more of a pride thing, versus now we realize, wow, there's a lot of things in this world I didn't know about. My world doesn't just consist of like, a 10-mile radius of the town I'm living in. Really, the world is huge. And I don't know even a fraction of the world has to offer. So really, I need to learn, I need to expand my mindset, and it's okay to ask for help.
When you were leveraging your primary house, like you used your HELOC to buy the second property, did you think that this doesn't come with risk?
Great question. I want to tell you something. Risk is out there. It's about managing risk. And for me, I had to get into an environment where I was getting education and support, and realizing, okay, this is something real. People are doing it. I'm not the only one, and I have support. So I joined a group back in 2011. I only had one property this time, but I wanted to get into real estate. No one in my friends and family circle was in real estate. And actually, the people at work would tell me, don't get into real estate because their family had a bad experience. So I was like, but there's just something within me. I said, well, I've got this tenant in my basement. This is a good thing. I think I want to get into this. So I paid to join a group. Within the first meeting, I walked up to a guy who was younger than me. I can clearly see he was younger than me. And we started talking. And I remember clearly as if it was today. I asked him, how many properties do you have? He goes, only 5. And I just stepped back. I'm like, you have 5 properties? He's like, yeah, only 5. And he says so casual. I'm like, you have 5 mortgages? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm stressing with 1 mortgage. You have 5 and you're younger than me. So I'm like, okay, I'm obviously in the right spot. So within a few months, I kind of connected and made a strong team of support from a real estate, a realtor who was investor focused, the right lender, the right lawyer, the right insurance agent. So I have this power team, let's call it, and I was able to go and buy my first duplex, right? A few months later. Of course, it wasn't perfect. Like that one property, that first rental property, really kicked my butt. All sorts of challenges. That's a whole other conversation stuff, right? But to answer your question on risk, yes, there was risk. I could have potentially lost the money. I could have invested it, and then the investment didn't turn out. And in fact, if I really spend probably time explaining that whole first year and a half of that first property, I actually got into the point where I threw in the towel. And I told my agent, sell this property. From the problem, I got taken for a ride with the contractors. I got really bad tenants initially. I had tenants that were fighting and quarreling between the 2 different units and stuff. And it was just like one thing after another. I told my realtor to sell the property. He listed the property. He could not sell it. So it was like, I can't even get rid of this problem and stuff, right? It was crazy. And finally, I said, okay, take the listing down. Let me figure this out. I was able to get those tenants out, get new people in, and it was a whole other experience. And I was like, wow, this is actually manageable. I outsourced the property, tenant finding, and all that services. And I was really able to see a whole other side of investing in real estate. But for me, I had to go through that first year and a half of pain. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's everyone's journey, because other people, the first rental property, it has been great, and then no problems, cool. But for me, I had to go through that first year of pain. But to really answer risk, it really is risk management. Anytime we take money and put it into something, there's a risk of you losing it, right? Or worse yet, you lose it and get sued or something, right? Yeah. it can be even more. You losing out to actually more than what you put into it, right? Yeah. So there's just risk. How can we mitigate that risk? What can we do to kind of like manage that risk? I'm like, we can, again, coaching is obviously important. Learning, networking, having the right support team, talking to other people doing what you're doing or wanting to do, asking questions. But really, until you take that step, you have to take that step. And once it's like learning in the field, ultimately. We can learn to be a doctor in school in theory, but until you actually go and actually are in the practice and doing what you've been practicing doing, you don't really know everything. And there are going to be some things that are going to come up that you weren't necessarily trained for. So this is what growing pains and things that you learn. But realize, this is not like, we can mitigate risk, balance risk, calculate risk, but there's risk. And there's conditions that we can't control, like market. We can't control the dynamics of the economy. We can't control when the Feds raise rate or drop rate. We can't control what they're printing money, how much money, right? We can't control when is there going to be a recession? When are people going to lose jobs? When is my tenant going to all of a sudden turn from a tenant to a D tenant or stop paying me rent? We don't know these things, right? When is there going to be a flood in a unit? Like I had that happen last year. It's like, we don't know, right? But this is part of the game. It's like any game. You know, you're rolling a dice, you play Monopoly, you roll a dice, you land and go in jail. You're like, great. But there's a risk there.
And honestly, Thomas, that can happen with life as well. So I was just, talking to my wife, and, there's some insulation problem in my house. Nothing to do with the house, right? It's a new house, but the ice became icicles, and there was a huge block of ice that fell close to my car. And I was like, what if I was standing there and it fell on my head, right? So risk is with life as well, right? You can be as healthy as you want to be, and as rich and wealthy as you want to be, and still die tomorrow, right? And that brings me to, you should always buy life insurance and protect your family if you're scared of that. And a lot of people say, oh, no, you're buying 4 properties, 5 properties. I'm the same. When I joined Wealth Genius, I was intimidated in the sense that I was like, shit, a lot of people think that I bought 5 properties, 4 properties, and they think that I'm some kind of a hero. And then here's someone who has 300 units. Here's someone who has 4,000 units. Just imagine how are they managing that risk, right? So I just wanted to learn that. I think risk is relative, and it's on to you on how much you can research and manage that risk, like you said, so that your risk of losing everything on that property or everything on that investment just minimizes.
Here's another example. Nav. Like even like the strategies within, we can get really deep on the even strategies of real estate. We can say one is like leverage. What leverage are you comfortable with, right? Some people are really great with like leveraging all their capital and going to a deal, an acquisition where the bank or private lender is going to fund like 80, 90, even 100% of the deal. And you're like, wow, I love that. I put no money or virtually no money into this deal. You can do that. It's not a scam. Like you can literally borrow 100% and go buy a property, right? Is there a risk? There's a huge risk, right? But I mean, for some people that works. For the right person, understanding how to utilize that particular type of product makes sense. And I would consider myself more of a balanced person, but I have used that particular strategy recently for a deal, but I wouldn't suggest it for anybody. But this particular deal was a short in and out where I borrowed private capital at like, I think it was 18%, right? It was, what's that firm? They're out west in Canada, but basically Calvert. So Calvert offers a product, basically they'll 100% finance it, you just put $20,000 down. But for me, I utilized that because I kind of understood the risk I was involved in. Just to make a long story short, I only paid 1 mortgage payment on that loan before it was paid off. So I knew how to utilize that risky product for a really quick in and out, right? Versus someone else is like, you paid 18% on the mortgage? You're crazy. I'm like, yeah, I didn't pay over like 30 years, right? Yeah. But I utilized it for a particular strategy. It worked, thankfully, but there was risk that it would have potentially delayed or caused other issues, but it didn't. So it was a calculated risk that I was willing to take to pay 18% mortgage, and it worked. And I was able to only make 1 mortgage payment in between getting that loan and paying off that loan. Versus I only want 50%, loan to value. So I want to have like 50% equity, which is a relatively safe place to be. And actually last night I was talking to my wife saying, hey, we have an opportunity on refinancing a property we own, like a multi-unit, and pay off another property in full. So I said, what do you think about that? So we're potentially going to decide to pay off that mortgage on that one property and have it mortgage free. I'm a firm believer of leverage, but also the idea of like, want to have 1 or 2 properties just completely paid off, no debt, and it's like a nice safety cushion there for retirement, for the future, that, something's paid off. I don't have to worry about, any bank coming after me, that sort of thing. One day I could sell it, and whatever really income it generates now from the tenant, it's much more profit because there's no more mortgage to service. So again, it's just managing the risk. But even within real estate, we can talk about the different types of risks.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I have this is an amazing question. Why and how did you both choose to invest in or work with real estate over other options?
Well, that's a good question.
Let's talk about investing.
Investing in real estate. Why invest in real estate? So again, it wasn't anything that, I don't know where you guys are from. We weren't taught this in school.
No.
When we thought of real estate, you just think of buying a house. That's it. When you thought about investing, you're thinking of stocks and mutual fund. Yeah. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much what we're taught in school. So growing up, investing, I'm gonna buy some stocks, or I start off buying mutual funds, right? And in my late teens, putting $300-400 away every month. Okay, I got my mutual funds growing and stuff, right? But after 10 years, I'm like, that's all I had? I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, it wasn't anything, after saving all that money, I was really at the realm of the market. And I said, oh, maybe it's stocks. So actually my early 20s, a friend kind of opened my eyes to stocks. So I kind of ventured on the stock market. And I remember today, my very first stock transaction was Air Canada. And I bought a share and I sold it within a week, and it moved up from something 30 cents to 50 cents. I made $300 in a week. And for me, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I just made money out of thin air.
Yeah.
So I was hooked, right? So for about a year, I was on the stock market playing on it, and I was making some money, losing some money, playing some money. But after all said and done, I realized I don't really have any control over this. I really felt like I was gambling. I didn't really take the time to really learn it, to really get a coach or really deep dive into it. I was really just really speculative and just hopefully this, hopefully that. But what I also found on it is that with the stock market, it's very instantaneous. I had to be on it every single day. So for me, and I had to explore another alternative. And for me, that's where I started looking into real estate. So I started reading some books. Rich Dad Poor Dad was probably one of the first books that kind of opened my mind to investing. And then I said, well, I own a home. What could I do? And that kind of took me to eventually join a group and go down that path. But really, once I started transacting some deals in real estate, then I realized the power of real estate, right? And that's the beauty about it. Is really kind of educating yourself, eventually doing a deal and realizing, wow, in real estate, you have multiple ways of making money. Or in stocks or other investment, you got to put money into it and that's it. But in real estate, you've got the cash flow from the tenants. Right. I don't know any other investment someone else is paying you every month. Yeah. I don't know if a stock market, someone's paying you every month to invest in that stock, right? Yeah. It doesn't happen. Yeah. But in real estate, you've got someone paying you every month. You've got appreciation happening, most likely. You've got mortgage pay down happening. You've got tax benefits, right? So you've got multiple, and you have the leverage. You have the leverage ability where you're putting, let's say 20, 30% down, but controlling 100% of an asset. So when this asset goes up 3%, your money is actually growing at almost a 20% clip.
Yeah.
So once you understand that, the power of leverage in something as real estate and it's more stable and it's a tangible asset, it's a physical object, then you're saying, all right, that's what attracted me to real estate. That's when my eyes start opening up. I'm like, even if the market crashes and this property goes to zero value on paper, someone will pay me to live in here. It's an actual physical object. And it's providing the basic necessity of life, which is housing. Someone will pay me rent. And most likely, my rent's not going to be coming down. Yep. Most rents in most markets, North America, continue to rise. So if you look at a chart over the last 50 years, last 20 years in North America, Canada, US, you will find the chart is going up. There may be some intervals where there's a slight correction, but the reality is rents rarely come down. With inflation, everything is rising. So even if the market corrects, like when we had the crash of 2008, did the rents crash? No, what ended up happening, actually, you had more people becoming renters. They lost their homes. You got to live somewhere. So more people, more clients for the landlords. So actually rents went up because there's more demand,
And the
right?
same
And
is happening
even
today, right? The same
exactly
today,
same
right?
thing happening today. Exactly, Nav. The rates are going up. I can't afford to buy, so I'm going to rent. And now rent in my market is up 25% year over
Yeah.
year. So that's, I mean, in a nutshell, those are some of the main reasons why I like real estate.
And I think, for me, the biggest eye-opening thing was, and obviously, I can use leverage in stocks as well. You have options and stuff like that. But would you get $500,000 from a bank to buy, or to leverage 3 to 1 on stocks? But, it'll be far more easier to get them to convince, to buy 5 to 1 or a 4 to 1 on real estate, because even they understand that, they are lending on the property, the asset, and that's not going away.
Right.
And that's important. And plus, you can force equity into your house. You can't force equity into, Tesla stock.
Right.
It's run by Elon Musk, and however way he wants to run it, he just does that, right? He dumps
Yes.
his own stock. He has control over my investment, but whereas here I have control over my investment. So if it goes
Yes.
to shit, I am to blame for it. If it increases, I am to benefit from it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really, really important. And
Yeah.
that's one of the
Predictability, risk management, you have that in real estate. You can buy a house in a certain condition and know that my neighbor's house is worth more because he did certain things to it. If I do certain similar things, it'll be worth the same. Got it. Much more predictable. So you have the opportunity to say, I'll spend the money, make it look like this. I'm raising the value of this. You're doing that. Not like Elon Musk or somebody else like you shared.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of very specific questions, so I'll just touch upon that. Now, this is for you. Can you directly invest in US without being a US citizen or a Canadian citizen? Can you?
100%.
Yeah, you can. I just invested. A lot of people don't know this because I have not, announced it, but I just invested in US with Thomas. And yeah, I can. And in fact, if I want to do it alone, it's a slightly different process, but it's a very open economy in the US, and you can actually do that. Interest rates will be slightly higher, yes, but if the numbers make sense, you can do it.
Canadians are the #1 foreign investors in the US.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other countries, China, Europeans investing in the US. You don't have to be a citizen to be investing in the US. So I just want to make that clear. Will you be required to do certain things? Yes. Is it overly complicated? No. But I mean, people are buying properties all the time from Canada and US. I mean, most of you, if you're living in Canada, you know someone who has a house in Florida. It's just, it's very common.
Absolutely. It's called snowbirding, right? So yeah. What is the best way to learn about real estate, especially Burr? What is the best way to invest in the US? I think we touched upon this. Ideal way would be to get a coach who has done this before, or at least fit yourself into, let's say let me take an example. So there's this realtor who is very much famous. A lot of people actually know this in Windsor. He's an Indian guy, Aditya Kumar Soma. Now, how can you fit yourself into his schedule? Can you go to his open houses? And he'll be there, and you can actually learn Burr from him, right, for free, right? Because you are helping him doing open houses, or you're helping him with door knocking or wholesaling or whatever, becoming his, executive assistant or something, right? So can you fit yourself into someone who you really want to learn from, into their schedule, and then learn it, right? So that's the free way of learning. And again, you can always join these masterminds like Well Genius, where you will get that information because you paid for it. And one thing that I learned from my mortgage coach, so I have a coach for mortgages as well, right? Is that it's not important what you know, it's important who you know. It's also important to have access to people like Thomas, people like Alfonso, people who have done this multiple times, made mistakes multiple times, and they have brought themselves up, and you just know them, and just knowing them will make you money sometimes, right? Like it's as simple, right? Just knowing them will make you money. And I think I can go on and on, about this topic. But Thomas, I'll give you back the last 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Thomas. This was amazing. I am sure there are still 50 people on the call. Thomas is a busy guy and he took out 90 minutes for this. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. So thank you, Thomas, for what you are doing for me and what you did for this community. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nav. Again, thank you for having me. It's been awesome seeing everyone here tonight. You guys had some excellent questions. Hopefully I answered some of them. And again, I just love real estate for some of the stuff we talked about, knowing what I know now. It's like, I'm going to pass this knowledge to my children, and I love to kind of share with other people. And that's kind of like what we do, just giving back to the community on these type of podcasts, webinars, educating people, encouraging them. I'm telling you don't have to be rocket science to learn this, to do this, to implement this. You don't need to live in the country for years and years. You just need to take the right action, surround yourself around people who are doing the things you want to do, put yourselves, in the right environments. There's plenty of these meetups and group events.
Oh, yeah.
There's 2-day workshops. Start taking those steps. You don't have, and before even hiring a coach, like just put yourself in these environments, start to absorb some of this real life kind of like education content. Start networking. I think you mentioned earlier, Nav, there's such power in networking and just learning from each other and seeing and listening to other people's experiences and what they've gone through, how they've gone through it. And then, being able to encourage you to take the next step wherever you're at. I'm at a certain level. I haven't reached my final destination. So we're constantly learning. So I'm putting myself in environments of people who are doing bigger and better things than myself to kind of stretch my capabilities, my knowledge, and my future and stuff. So yeah, I want to encourage all of you, but it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you again, Nav, and I wish you guys all the best.
Yeah, and we are getting some really, really good feedback on the chat, if you can see. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for sticking along for 90 minutes. And Thomas, I'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye.